Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the start of a new academic year. My name is Beth Novak. I'm director of the GovLab and the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University. And welcome back to our next season of Rebooting Democracy in the Digital Age. We are recording, as you can see, and streaming. So thank you for joining us for our first session. And what we hope will be an exciting year of talks from visionaries, from change makers, technologists, activists, thought leaders, and others who are talking to us about the ways in which they are using technology, in particular AI, to strengthen democracy and improve governance. The lecture series is complemented by a blog of the same name, Rebooting Democracy, which you can find. We'll put a link in the chat. And both the blog and the lecture series are hosted by the Burns Center and the GovLab in collaboration with the Institute for Experiential AI at Northeastern University. Today, I am very thrilled to welcome a truly leading activist and innovator, investigative journalist, David Lesher from Cal Matters, who will be showing us in just a moment the Digital Democracy Project. So we are kicking off our year with a little show and tell. And I'm really glad that instead of just talking in theory, we'll be able to really showcase what's happening in California in practice. We'll put a link to Digital Democracy in the chat so you can follow along. David has been spearheading the use of AI to create unprecedented legislative transparency and accountability in California. And I hope, as a result of today's lecture and what follows it, that we may be able to inspire some copycats around the country and around the world, and hopefully beyond at other levels of government. He is a veteran California journalist and a state policy expert and co-founder of Cal Matters, which is the home of Digital Democracy. I'm going to put his extensive and impressive bio in the chat so that instead of taking any more time away from him, I'm going to pass it to him to do demo, but let me say for all of you, we have two forums for your engagement and conversation here. We hope you will use the chat by all means to comment, to talk to one another, to have what I like to call a conversation in 4 dimensions in the chat. If you have a question or comment for David, please do use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type your question in there, so that we can organize them and ask them when we get to the Q&A, which we're setting aside a lot of time for. And if David is game, what we will do is at the end of our hour, we will also have an opportunity for some virtual direct conversation. But we like to make this as interactive as possible. So please do use the chat and the Q&A. And without any further ado, David, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Beth, and welcome, everybody. I look forward to having this conversation, and I want to give you a quick tour. There's a lot to go through to show you, so I'm going to get right to it. And before I jump in, just one thing I wanted to share. This is Digital Democracy. There are 3 parts to it. One is a massive database. We are paying a lot of money to Amazon for this database. It has transcripts, every single word uttered in a public meeting for the last couple of years in California, all the votes taken, all the bills, all the money, and much more. So that massive database is feeding 2 different things. One is a website that we kind of consider 2 purposes for. One is it's a portal for a broad general audience to understand the legislature, who their representatives are, and what the agenda is on the different topics in California, like in environment or healthcare or education. And then the website is also gives access to this database to the public. So there are ways to get that a lot of advocates and others get into the detail of what's in the database. The second way that the database is used is to generate what we call tip sheets. So basically, we've created this AI to scan this database constantly in real time as transcripts are coming in, as money is coming in, as votes are taken, and it's trained to look for story ideas for reporters. And when it sees a story idea, it prints a one-page, what we call a tip sheet. And my mantra to the creators of this, it's Cal Poly San Luis Obispo here in California, and a web firm that's just been wonderful doing the front end, 10 Up. My mantra has been that I want the reporter at the Modesto be in California who doesn't really know the legislature really well and who doesn't have a lot of time can look at this tip sheet and see a story that they can turn around in a couple hours, so that we can just create more transparency and more coverage and more attention to these people and to the policymaking process. So just that quick introduction, and then let me give you a tour of the site, and then look forward to answering your questions. So you should be able to see my screen now.
We can.
This is the homepage of Digital Democracy, and this toolbar, this search bar, is the access to the kind of giant database. And just to show what you can do, I can type in anything, and I will look for comments here, and I can see every single time New Jersey was mentioned in the legislature, I can go straight to that discussion, and I can watch the video.
Born in
and I can
1923
track.
and raised in
There's the
Newark,
quote.
New Jersey, Jack was a professional trombone player.
And I can do that for anything. I'll come back to this in a minute, but I can search the word fentanyl and see all the bills that have to do with fentanyl or other topics like that. Just quickly on the homepage here also, I'm not going to go to these pages, but this is how you look at the agenda in California in 2024 for these different topics. These are pages that are curated by our beat reporters with a little narrative that they write about what's coming up this year, what are the major bills on those topics, and who are the key leaders on those topics as identified by data. There's a demographic and political profile of the legislature here. You can sort through different filters. And then there's a fun little feature here that we have where you can look at the top and bottom 10 list of legislators for, districts with poverty or money in elections or, missed votes or gifts, things like that. So that's just a quick spin of the homepage. I want to show you a legislator page. The legislator pages, you can see we're trying to make it not wonky and insider, that it's trying to be inviting. So all these banner images are from the district of this legislator. Jim Wood represents kind of the north coast of California. There's a list of all the stories we've written about that legislator here. There's a couple data visualizations of data that's in the database. He's the speaker pro tempore. And this is an interesting interactive feature where I can take any organization that has ever given or taken a position on a bill in California, and I can look here and I can see how this legislator votes in sync with that organization and how much money this organization has given to that legislator over that time period. Here's a look at all of the money that involving this all the election money involving this legislator, direct candidate donations or money spent by the party or money spent by independent expenditures or PACs. But I can look at any sector, the labor sector, I can see the amount, I can go back out. We also, and these bars compare how that money that went to this legislator compares to other legislators. We also look at three categories of what I call influence money, which is all money given to this legislator after they are elected, either gifts or travel or behests. Behests in California is when a legislator asks for a donor to give to a third party, like a charity. I have all the bills authored by Jim Wood. I have all the committees that Jim Wood serves on. I have all the interest group rankings, all those who like him and all those who don't. There's links to all of the most significant times this legislator has spoken most recently. and then a profile of the district, both the voter registration, some of the census data about ethnicity and age, and election results, and the map, where you can see he represents the North Coast. And then I want to jump to a bill page. I'm just going to click here. Okay, this is a floor vote. So I'm going to go to the bill page first. Every bill introduced in California for the last several years will have a page like this. There's a status bar that shows you, where the bill is in the process. You can look at the text of the bill. You can look at votes, all the votes taken on this bill in each committee. You can see, how the vote, who voted for, who voted against. You can see supporters and opponents of this bill. And there's a date that links to the source of that position that they took. And it is either linked to the transcript where somebody representing that organization took that position in a hearing, or to the bill analysis where that position was registered in writing to the committee. And then we also have, I should go, stories that we've written about this bill are here as well. And then there are links to all the video and transcript of all the other times that this bill was considered at different points in the process. So that's a bill page. Now I want to show you a hearing page. The hearing page, this is the Senate Health Committee hearing on June 26th. You can see here the agenda of all the bills that were considered at this hearing. What we're looking at is the discussion just about this one bill, AB 3129. I can click right here.
Maybe my colleagues will come down
straight to the video of
or
the
hopefully
beginning
somebody's
of
listening
that bill
somewhere.
discussion.
Hope so.
And you
Appreciate
will
your
see,
optimism on this too.
Jim Wood, the author, comes up and starts
Thank you,
to
Mr.
speak. I can jump ahead in the transcript, and the video will jump ahead at the same time. I can click here and I can copy a link directly to this point in the transcript and use it to paste in my story that I write or social media. So somebody can come straight to the video and the transcript. There's also, you can also download the transcript right here. And that'll be just the transcript for this bill discussion. I can see everybody who spoke in this hearing, and everybody who has ever spoken in the legislature for the last couple of years. There's a web page on digital democracy for that person. And every bit of data that we have about that person is collected on that page. Any position they've taken, any testimony they've given, any money they've given. So if I look, here's a person page. This is it shows you when the testimony was. I can link to the video if I want. This is a lobbyist who works for Capital Advocacy. Here's who they've represented. Here's all their past representations, and here's the video to their testimony. If this person had given money, that would be there as well. So that is the hearing page, people page, bill page, legislator page. The last thing I want to show you is another way to get at the database is through these different directories. I can look at any hearing for the last couple of years. I can find it by topic or by bill number or keyword or chamber. I can do the same for hearings, bills, committees. Every organization that's taken a position or given any money has a page in digital democracy. Oops, hang on a second. I'm typing in the wrong place. So as if you know data, you also know that the way these organizations are recorded in various different databases across state government is not all identical. And so one of the ways we are dealing with that is listing on their organization page all the different spellings that we are assigning to this organization. So we're trying to be transparent, and if we got anything wrong, we haven't had too many, but there are people who have called and said this is why that shouldn't be included there. But it's one of the problems with tracking all this data with the quality that we have right now. But anyway, this is the California teachers page. These are all the people who have testified or taken positions representing CTA, and I can click through to their individual pages. Here's all the CTA lobbying representations, all the positions CTA has taken on bills, all of the money the CTA has given to legislators, and links to all of the hearings. And then
David, could I interrupt you for a second just to
Yeah.
have you clarify for this group, which is so interested in AI, how AI is, where AI is being used here?
So I was just about to get to that.
Awesome.
The tip sheets are, hang on a second. Hang on a second. The tip sheets are where the AI comes in. The AI scans the database and it comes up with these story ideas for reporters. This is not going to be accessible for the public because kind of by definition, it is an AI generated idea that needs a reporter to check it out. But this is the portal that you'll sign up for as a reporter. You can create your own profile here about which legislators you want to cover or follow, or which topic you want to follow. All these cards are different tip sheets that will assign to your default filters. Just quickly, this number is a reflection of the quality of the story idea. I can talk more about that, but we're trying to sort out the tip sheets so the best ideas are at the top. And then just lastly, I just go through one of the tip sheets. So this is all generated by AI. This is a bill discussion about AB 236. The artificial intelligence identifies that, here's a state senator who was in favor of a bill that one of the major donors to this legislator was against. The story idea describes what the bill does. It's an interesting bill, actually. It's about hedge funds and buying healthcare facilities. So it talks about what the bill is about, what happened to the bill, and what are the anomalies or patterns it sees in the relationships between those who voted and those who supported and opposed the bill. Here's a summary of the bill written by AI. These gauges are really for reporters who don't know the Capitol very well. It's kind of give them a sense of how this bill compares to normal bills in terms of how many witnesses spoke, how many organizations took a position, and how much money was given by supporters or opponents. We also just finished a beta test where the last month we shared these tip sheets with about a half dozen reporters around California. And based on that feedback, this page is going to be redesigned to kind of simplify it. It's still definitely kind of a beta test, but before the legislative session resumes in January, this will be redesigned. And I say that partly because this chart here is probably the heart of the tip sheet. It is, and it's just packed with data that I can look at any organization that has taken a position for or against this bill and their relationship with all of the legislators who voted on this bill in terms of two things. One, what we call their alignment score, which is how consistently that legislator has voted with that organization in the past, and how much money that organization has given to that legislator. So what's really interesting here is you can see this is the California Medical Association. This is just a data point, but they have a 53% success rate in getting things through the legislature. On this bill, they took a position that's against. Here's the total amount of money they've given to legislators over this time period, $3.1 million. And then here's where the relationship and the conflict comes in, which is something a reporter would want to look at. All of these Democrats voted aye, which is a vote against CMA. And all of them have ratings, of 70 to 80 to almost 90% of voting consistently with CMA. And almost all of them got money from CMA. So, you can see that all on this one table. There's more to look at there as a reporter, but it's an indicator of why I would want to look further into this story. The AI also pulls quotes from the hearing, and we're teaching it to do, quotes for and against, and quotes from legislators and from witnesses. There's a chart about all the people who spoke at this hearing, who they're representing, what their position was, and links to their testimony. And then the rest actually is just other data visualizations of some of that same data. So that is the quick tour. I'm actually winded.
Fantastic. That was just magnificent. And what we'll do to give you a break from talking for a moment and to give our audience a chance now, apologies, it seems the Q&A was broken before, not turned on. Please use the Q&A to ask your questions. But what I want to do is to give the floor first to Senator Andrew Zwicker, whom we're very delighted to have with us here today. Senator Zwicker is chair of the Legislative Oversight Committee in New Jersey, and vice chair of the Higher Education and Labor Committees as well, and also sits on the Budget and Appropriations Committee. And in addition, he's also a scientist. So he has a deeper understanding of AI than most. He was also chair of the Science, Innovation, and Tech Committee when he was on the House side. So I'm going to give him the floor first to really ask him whether you have questions, reactions. Is this something we want to have in New Jersey?
Thank
Senator.
you, Beth. Thank you, David. Let me start with there. Yes, and the answer is we need it yesterday. I have a bunch of questions. It's very impressive, and I appreciate, Beth, your prompt about where is AI in this? Because at first, it did look like you were just scraping a lot of websites and throwing a lot of data together that conveniently was in one spot, as opposed to in open secrets or in any other place where some of this data is available. So understanding how AI has really enhanced the website is critical. I guess I have two questions, because it's clear that what you're doing in California is incredibly valuable, and we have nothing like this in New Jersey. So a couple of questions. Does anything like this exist anywhere else besides California? How database dependent is it? You mentioned quickly you work with Amazon in terms of trying to, before you train your AI, you've got to gather the data. New Jersey is known, like our legislative website is known for being particularly unuser friendly or user unfriendly, wherever you want to put the negative. So I think there's a couple of things from a practical side. How California specific is what you've done, because it really leads to how do we export this into other states? You talked about follow the money quite a bit, but you're also talking about following the legislative process in a one-stop shop. So that's just tip of the iceberg questions I have, but let me just stop there and get your reaction.
So we are taking this to other states. We're in that discussion right now, and we're looking at, the sources of data in other states. I would say too that the Cal Poly team that built the back end, the database, actually had a kind of what I would call a V1 of this up and running in 2015, and it ran for 3 years in Texas, Florida, New York, and California. And the basic data is pretty universal. It's transcripts, it's money, it's votes, and it's bills. That's the basic data. There's a lot more that we have brought in here, But every location, every city council, every level of government has that basic data. It's just a question of exactly how you get it. We're looking right now at Texas, for example, and there's going to be litigation about exactly what happens here. There's a federal at the federal level, the public process, the public policy making process is public. But there are states, and Texas is one of them, that have kind of copyrighted the video as if it's not a public document, and you have to have permission to use it and how you use it. And so we've had attorneys look at the two sides, but we'll go ahead and use it and see what happens.
Yeah, and just one more follow-up question. I'm sure there's plenty of others. And just as an aside, a few years ago, I had to get through the legislature a bill to mandate how normally publicly available data is shared with the public, so that in this case, it was related to gerrymandering and redistricting. Because the state was just not doing it in a way that was machine readable and therefore not usable by any of the models without a tremendous amount of work. And that gets to the sort of, how do you standardize data before you even send it off to a database or have AI start to do its analysis? So that's why I was curious about that one. I think the second follow-up question is, what advice do you have? What does New Jersey need to do? If me and the legislature, or Beth and the governor's team are like, we want to bring this to New Jersey and any other state, how do we start?
I think the first thing is we're in the process right now of thinking this through ourselves. How can we templatize what we've built? Right now we've already funded 10 up to build the web page that's the same, that you can turn on and off different things for different states, but an improvement in one goes to everybody. So so we don't have to rebuild a web page for every state. I think the data is more unique in each state, but but we're also setting up kind of a centralized place where there's a lot of human editing that goes on in the transcripts. Even after we pull the video, we send the audio to a place to have it transcribed by AI, and then we have at least an hour or more of human editing on that transcript after the AI transcript. And a lot of that is to identify the speakers and connect them to the rest of the data in the database. But I think we're going to have to go state by state through a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I would love to go to New Jersey.
Well, we would love to have you. I see there's questions in the chat and other things, so I don't want to dominate the whole time here. But perhaps we can have a conversation offline between myself, you, Beth, about what this would look like, whether or not this needs legislative route versus going through the administrative route. But New Jersey's notorious. Stop here. New Jersey is notorious in how difficult it is to get access to data. What you just showed us would be a quantum leap forward. If I can get anywhere between where we are now and where you are, and ideally to where you are, would just be spectacular. And if AI can help facilitate that, even more wonderful. So thank you for a few minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. I would say some of this data we have to manually collect because it's on paper and it's written in a way that you can't scrape it. So we literally have college students and pizza and a dashboard to digitize it. But yeah.
Apropos of college students, we have a number of them who I hope will ask questions in the room, but I want to thank the Senator for coming and joining us and being willing to come and see this. And I think your time was well spent. I'm sure you now agree, but I appreciate your coming on faith that there was something worth seeing that would happen here, and there definitely is. Apropos of the Senator, I want to ask you, though, I know this project is relatively new, but how has this added level of scrutiny changed politician behavior yet? At the very least, maybe this top 10 talkative award that you now have, how is it changing what politicians do? How is it changing yet what the public does? Or is it too early to tell?
It is really fascinating. I mean, it has, it's only, the tool just became available in April, and we've been using it internally since April. But the talkative point is it went viral right at the very beginning. That we started seeing in transcripts of different legislators talking about who was the most talkative in the legislator, and they were competing. So anyway, another thing that had a big impact and that I think is going to change some rules in the legislature is we did an early story looking at every vote cast in the legislature for the last 5 years, and it was over 1 million votes. And we could just look at every one of them. We could see exactly how many times there was yes vote, no vote, or a no vote, or that person didn't vote. And we found, to our surprise, and I think to a lot of people, the Democratic Party votes no less than 1% of the time, which kind of makes the process look like a rubber stamp because, I mean, honestly, a lot of work is done before it gets to the public meeting. But that has prompted some legislators who are going to introduce a rule change next year about no voting and voting no.
So that's amazing that people vote no less than 1% of the time, so as not to be on record. As I put an article in the chat just for people's benefit that whether you sent me or I found the CBS article about the gun violence hearing or the opioid hearing that makes this point, I think, quite clearly. Okay, you now have a zillion questions in the Q&A, some of which are clarifying questions and some of which are not. So I'll give you a chance to kind of take a look at them, but let me maybe ask you, John Gastel, professor at UPenn, asks, what happens when the AI gets something wrong? Is there a pattern to the errors? And when corrected, do that variety of error repeat or all but disappear?
So good question. I was going to bring this up. So this is not an LLM. This is not like ChatGPT. This is a custom-made AI tool that was built at Cal Poly, and it's limited to scanning this database. So everything in the database is a public government document. You can go find it. It's just this pulls it all together in one place, so I can query with one search bar across all these different databases. But the AI is limited to what's in the database, and when it writes a tip sheet, everything is linked to the original source, and the original source is a public government document. So I mean, I do think, we've encouraged reporters to look at the original source, but it's not like there are hallucinations here like you have with an LLM.
John, since you're off camera, any follow-up from that, or did that answer your question?
That did. I would just say it would be fun if the reporters were ever saying that they found something in the tip sheet that didn't jive with what they, in their, I love your idea of the 2-hour story. And that's where you might find the errors, is that the summarization is missing something or miscategorizing something. It's implicitly doing it, right?
Yeah, so the summarization, there's a link right next to the summarization of the original text. So we've told the reporters before you put it in a story, check that, the original text is the same thing.
Yep. Sorry, I'm on mute. I'm on mute. Sorry, I was saying nice things about you, John, so I just won't do that now. And we'll keep going again. And so you have another question here from Shimon Waldvogel. Happy to see you again. One of our regulars in this series, who asked whether you can discuss the funding and how are you going to maintain financial support going forward? It appears that more than 90% of your revenue is donors and foundations. How do you make this sustainable? And I would add to that, is it, you're an investigative journalist, so coming at this from the outside, is it something that you'd be willing to let the legislature pay for if they were so inclined?
I'd be open to that. I mean, I don't know if you've followed in California, there's a bill to get money for the media, and in the testimony, they specifically cited digital democracy as an example. The funding, there's two primary funders of digital democracy. It's the Knight Foundation and the Arnold Ventures Foundation. And as we go to other states, we're kind of looking for a mix of this national level funding and some level of local contribution. I don't know what it is yet. We got to figure out what the exact cost is, but some kind of some mix of local and national money to grow it beyond what we've done in California. Cal Matters, all of our money comes from philanthropy, almost all. We have, about 5% is corporate sponsors, and but the rest is all foundations and individual donors and membership. And the Cal Matters budget now is about $15 million a year. So so digital democracy is not cheap, but that's the nonprofit space is growing in the media.
So we have a question in the Q&A from one of our fabulous Northeastern Co-op students. Jake asks, how do you get an average user to understand and use all the features that are available? There's a large number of capabilities that can be utilized, and he wonders, I imagine, and Jake, I don't know if we can spotlight you here, but he's wondering about, how do you explain all this to people? Is there training? Is there a demo? Is there online help? How do you help people take advantage of all this?
I love this question because it's absolutely true, and it's one of the things that's so hard to do. I mean, we've done a lot of webinars and trainings and speaking. I think we've started to look at organizations that like the PTA or like the Sierra Club or the Chamber of Commerce that have audiences that are interested in these topics, and have them understand it in a way that they would point their members to. We also, our stories are shared with newspaper and radio and TV all over the state, so there's a growing understanding of it. But this is about 6 months out the door, and this will be a constant ongoing training, understanding, iteration. And honestly, as AI continues to evolve, I think this whole project will kind of ride a wave of how much easier does this get. Like I showed you all the filters and kind of directories of accessing the database. I don't know how long it's going to be before you could just query the database like you can chat with a bot. I mean, that would make it a lot easier. It's not, but that's not trustworthy yet.
So there's a question, not in the Q&A, but in the chat, but I'm going to ferret it out from my colleague, Professor David Fields, who asks about the facts being questioned here. And so he wants to know, how do you combat, is there an issue with, where people are constantly questioning facts in today's politics and leveling the accusation of fake news? How do you combat things like this? Or is this not an issue because of who you are, and is it viewed as reliable? Or because you're talking to journalists, are you not so worried about this?
I mean, honestly, I think the stories that we've done off of digital democracy are even more credible because they're empirically based. They use data to show the relationships between and what's happening in the process, and they link to the original sources. So, I mean, I've been a journalist for a long, long time. We've never had that capacity, the ability to do that. But, and one of the things that we've been able to do in digital democracy stories is kind of explore those relationships, and not a way that some stories previously might have generalized about, what's the relationship between Chevron and this legislator. Now I can show you specifically. And so, we haven't had too much question about misinformation from digital democracy yet, but I think it's one of the things that I think about, how it can help increase credibility.
So there's a quick clarifying question from Joe Jermuska at Northwestern, not Northeastern, who wants to know if any data is available for bulk export or via API for other kinds of analyses.
There will be. There will be. I think we still think of ourselves as kind of in a beta phase, and so we're constantly tweaking, exactly what the database looks like. But our I would expect in the next couple of months or less than a year, there will be a public API.
So Joe is also a Knight grantee, I think executive director of the Knight Lab there. So if there's any follow-up that you want to ask, because it sounds like you might have a project in mind. So maybe we can get both Northwestern and New Jersey somehow involved. And this brings me to Sarah's question, which is also my own. So Sarah asked about spreading the framework to at the federal level, and whether you see an opportunity here for greater transparency at the congressional level. And besides mandating the creation of transcripts, what else would we need to do to try to implement something like this at the federal level? And should we be looking at
that? I think this is going to go to every level at some point, where I think we're at the very, very, very beginning. As AI and as data, as we, you can apply this to city level, to county level, to the federal level is a magnitude more complex. But the transcripts are the hardest part of the whole process. Because it's hours and thousands of hours of transcripts, and all of it is human edited and connected to the data, and that's expensive. And so that's the biggest challenge. A lot of the other data, it's just a question of, like I said, the exact source is different in different places, but it's there.
So there's another question here about, I think there's two things that Leodora asks here about how the product deals with usability, which we sort of got asked a little bit before, but accessibility. Has that been a priority in the development, is to ensure that this is compliant for people with disabilities, as well as, potentially people with other cognitive abilities? And then especially given the biases of the internet and the difficulties of using AI, how do you handle issues of accessibility as well as usability?
I think we have had, honestly, we specifically haven't talked about, what we might do to make the website identify specific disabilities that might have challenges with what we've got. I think for the tip sheets, that's not for a public audience. It's really for reporters, and reporters only. And I think that I think if you're going to be a reporter, you're going to have the ability to kind of understand what's on that tip sheet.
And in terms of the feedback from journalists that you've been getting, so you did this kind of usability, human-centered research, it sounds like, with journalists, and they gave you good feedback on what they need to make the tip sheets more effective for them. Tell us a little bit more about sort of what you're hearing in terms of the challenges that they're facing with regard to coverage. Or put another way, sort of going beyond the technical or just the design, what are the challenges really for democracy in California when it comes to legislative transparency in this current media climate where there are just not as many reporters covering state and local issues? What challenges are they facing, and what features does that imply that you need to help to deliver here or would like to deliver?
So the challenges are huge, which is one of the reasons why we're building digital democracy. For most legislators in California, there's 120 of them. There is little or no coverage at all. I mean, if you want to try and find something about your legislator, really, you're only going to find people who don't like them or them talking about themselves. And so the idea of making it possible for a local reporter to cover their local representative is what digital democracy is trying to do. And there's lots of challenges. I mean, we just had these 6 reporters in the last month working on this, but it really was, trying to find time in their day where they can break out and see this and really find stories that, they want to cover their legislator, but, I mean, finding out they don't know the state government that well, they don't have a lot of time, and so that's a huge challenge. I also think in California, honestly, the state government has become much more opaque. I was a reporter at the LA Times covering the state for many years, and the policymaking process is much more opaque than it was before. And so that's a challenge. Another challenge that, digital democracy tries to kind of look internally at the process in a way that, just a reporter trying to keep up with things, will never see everything you can see in digital democracy.
Have you had requests from legislators along the lines of, have you had your equivalent of Senator Zwicker from California coming to you and saying, build us X or build us Y yet? Or are people still content for you to do this from the outside? In other words, a lot of the reasons the process is opaque is because it's actually also challenging for them. And there's such a desperate need for using AI tools internally to the legislature to improve productivity. Are you getting requests to help redesign how the process works internally?
We've had some. I mean, I had a senator say that she wants to explain her votes more in committee now that she knows it's easy to find out what happened there. I think I've had a request from campaigns to find out about their opponents, things like that.
But in terms of tools, are you getting requests to bring these tools inside or to do other things given your knowledge, obviously now of both the law and policymaking process and the AI?
No, we haven't had requests like that yet. I mean, I still think it's pretty new. I think a lot of, it's only been up since the middle of the session.
And we'll see if that starts coming yet. So we had a question, and maybe it's worth clarifying. Prasoon asked a question about the CCPA or the privacy regulations in California. I'm not sure, Prasoon, if you want to clarify the question, but I assume there's no issue here because these are all public hearings. These are politicians speaking publicly, and so these are transcripts that are required to be captured by law. Prasoon, was there another aspect to the question? Please feel free to clarify it if we're missing something here.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand, since in California there is also right to deletion, where certain person can request for deletion of the record. So I just wanted to understand whether it actually applies to it or any other regulation that applies to it with which AI can be of help.
we actually had a ballot measure that made all of this especially publicly accessible. All of the video has to be public, every single hearing, and the video has to be posted and available publicly within 24 hours. So that's all accessible because of a ballot measure.
You have, I think, a related question, which is whether the legislative history is archived. Melissa asked from the Hawaii State Senate. So we've got some more legislators here.
So
legislatures.
If the legislation we've been following is archived?
Melissa, do you want to clarify your question? She just writes, is the legislative history archived?
Yeah, my question is basically, I know doing research, I actually, I'm the chief of staff for a senator here, but doing research on legislative history and it could be somebody that's no longer in office, but as far as the history of a bill enacted or whatever, and who voted, who testified, stuff like that, is that archived on this digital democracy?
Yes.
Because that's important to reporters too.
It is for different databases have different time points. For money, we have every dollar back to 2015. For the transcripts that have had this human editing, that only goes back till 2023. The legislation, I believe that goes back 4 or 5 years, but it's a good question. I mean, you can anyway, we have about 4 or 5 years of the bill data, and the transcripts are just a couple of years.
So I want to ask you what may be a final question, given the late hour, is to ask you just to reflect for a moment now on what does democracy look like if you're already successful, if you continue to be successful, if this grows, if this spreads. Northwestern is going to bring it to the Illinois Senate. We're going to bring it to New Jersey. There's a question in the chat we didn't get to about bringing this to municipalities and obviously we talked a little about the federal level. From your perspective, how does the lawmaking process look differently, or how does journalism and how we behave as journalists in a democracy, how does democracy improve as a result?
So it's a great question, and I don't have a perfect crystal ball, but I can tell you, I think, I don't see how this isn't the future of journalism in an important way, because if you assume that artificial intelligence is going to be a game changer across sectors, basically what we're doing is training artificial intelligence on what the data is, what are the patterns in the policymaking process, and how does it work, and what does it look like when there's an anomaly, and what are the things that reporters want to know in the data? What should you look for? And so that's all training, and that is just going to go on and on and on. It's not going to, for years, and we're doing it at the state level, but there's no reason, like those 4 or 5 data points that I mentioned that are the basic foundation of this are at the city level, the county level, the federal level. And so I do think that, this project will kind of ride that wave. I do think, in terms of what difference it makes on democracy, I can just tell you, the policymaking process in California is profoundly different than it was when I was a reporter at the LA Times, and there was much more media coverage of the process. It was a much more public process that, the strategy for getting something passed was really to create more of a public initiative behind the measure, more momentum. And now it's a much more internal process. And actually, media coverage or public intervention is a distraction, because it's so internal. It's just counting heads about how do you get to where you need to be to get something passed. And so I think the more this kind of a tool can open up that process and make it more transparent and accountable, I think it will very much change how these decisions are made.
Well, we're really excited to come along for that ride. And I think you have a lot of people here who want to continue to talk to you after this conversation. So if there's a best way to reach you, please share it in the chat or let us know how we can put people in touch with you. We have, obviously, we're streaming this as well. So for those who are watching along on the internet, but not in the Zoom, who might want to get in touch with you, thank you for sharing that information. And we invite people to take a look again at Cal Matters and digital democracy. And I want to thank you for being willing to stick around and chat with us about this phenomenal project. I am not alone, and you heard it from the senator as well. Well worth the time to see what the future could and should look like when it comes to the legislative process and how we cover it. So we're just excited to stay in touch, and we want to thank you for kicking off our series today. I will just say, for those stalwarts who would like to come back and join us, we have another Rebooting Democracy in the Age of AI talk, Thursday, September 26th. That's 2 weeks from now. We're actually doing 2 in September. We will be joined by Frank McCourt, author of Our Biggest Fight, talking about a future of a public internet and what it means for democracy. So we'll put that information in the chat and a link to sign up, and we hope you'll join us for that and future events. And with that, I will wish everybody a wonderful evening, morning. We have people here for whom in Taiwan, for whom it's first thing in the morning. I see people here again in Hawaii, for whom it's a lot earlier in the day. And I see somebody from Spain who's about to go to sleep. So from all your time zones, thank you for taking the time to be with us. And David, thank you for not just joining us and sharing this work, but for doing this work. It is really a Herculean effort, and we wish you bon courage